Shumai guys, welcome back to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that helps you make the most of your time here on Earth. My name is Dav Morse, and I'm your host, and today I am joined by a very special guest. I'm very excited. It's always exciting to have people on the podcast as guests. When I heard this particular guest on another podcast, I thought, I need to get her on the Life to the Full podcast. This is absolutely phenomenal. She's got some amazing thoughts, some amazing philosophies on work, retirement, taking mini retirements. Who is she? Who is this special guest? It's time to find out. Wait for the music, wait for the music, wait for the music. There we go. And one more. Today's guest is Jillian Johnsrud. Now, Jillian never expected to be able to retire early, so she hatched a plan to retire often instead. Inspired by the idea of sabbatical years, she set out to sprinkle retirement throughout her life. By the time she turned 40, she'd taken over a dozen mini-retirements. These allowed her to pursue dreams like living abroad, travelling to 27 countries, adopting 4 kids, plus 2 biological kids, investing in real estate and touring the US in a camper. She's taught, coached and written about mini-retirements for almost a decade. She hosts the Retire Often podcast and is a popular speaker and consultant for mini-retirements. She lives in Montana, where she spends her time in the garden drinking tea, but today she joins me on the Life to the Full podcast. So without further ado, let's get to my interview with Jillian Johnsrud. Jillian, welcome to the Life to the Full podcast. It is absolutely a pleasure to have you here.
So excited to be here. Thank you.
I came across you and your work on the Paula Pant Afford Anything podcast. I listened to Paula and I thought, man, Jillian sounds absolutely fantastic. She and I share so many philosophies about work, about life, and I would love to chat to her, find out a little bit more about mini retirements, retiring often, and she can bring a lot of value to my listeners, my audience, who also like to be a bit flexible with the way that they work. So thank you for coming on. Jillian, when I started my teaching career at 22 years old, I couldn't imagine still being at my job 45 years later. I was surrounded by people who couldn't wait to retire. There was one chap in particular who used to say, 5 years to retirement, 4 years to retirement, and 3 years to retirement. And I didn't know what to do any differently, but you have figured out how to square that circle, how to take multiple retirements when you are still young enough to enjoy them. What is the biggest lie that we've been sold about work and retirement?
I think it's that the model that worked really well for perhaps our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents holds just as true today as it did then. And I think we've noticed that the economy is different and work culture is different, but there's still some things that we hold on to by default because we haven't questioned it. That I'll go to school and then I'll work for a solid 40 years and then hopefully I can enjoy 30 years of retirement. And we know that other things have changed. Like we might not spend 40 years at one company. We might switch companies. We might not even spend 40 years in one career. In the modern economy, it's really common for people to switch careers or industries. But we're still kind of holding on to but I'll work 40 years straight, right? Like I won't take any breaks. And the reality is, not only is that not necessary, but in the current economic situation, it can be a huge advantage to take mini retirements, which sounds a little counterintuitive, but when you start to peel back those layers, I think it does make sense.
Excellent. You mentioned the word mini retirement there. How do you think about mini retirements? What is your definition of mini retirements?
I define a mini retirement with 3 elements. One, it's a month or longer. I feel like a month is like the minimum effective dose, but sometimes it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, but at least a month or longer. Stepping away from your primary career. Whatever that primary where you earn money doesn't mean you have to do nothing, but stepping away from the primary career. And the third one, to focus on something that's meaningful to you. Perhaps also enjoyable, but definitely something that's meaningful. And if you hit those 3, it can be really magical.
Fantastic. Tell me about one of your most memorable mini retirements.
Gosh, this is tough because I really love all of them. I've done a dozen of them.
Wow.
And one of the reasons I called my book or my podcast Retire Often versus take one massive epic mini retirement where you do all the things you ever dreamed of is that by doing it repeatedly, by doing it often, you're able to customize each one. You're able to give each one a specific intention, a specific flavor, and lean into the opportunities that season of life presents. So like in my very first mini retirement, me and my best friend was like 24. We did a 1-month road trip, DC to Seattle and back, which if you're not in the US, that's a long drive.
It sounds like a long way.
It's a lot of distance.
Hang on, that's all the way from one side to the other, right?
Yeah, that's one side to the
Whoa.
other. Yeah. And we slept on people's couches and we camped and we almost got like trampled by bison. Like it was amazing and it was perfect. And I'm so glad we did it. And I'm never doing that trip again. Like that season of life is over. It was awesome. And I'm not doing it again. One, like now we're, middle-aged and we have like careers and like responsibilities, but I don't want to sleep in the frozen ground anymore. Like it was awesome and I'm done with it. Like
Yeah.
I don't do that stuff anymore. And so I think finding the ones that when my kids were little, we did a 10-week trip to 10 national parks and it was so incredible. It was so magical. Like, because they were that perfect age where they loved being with us and everything was cool and everything was exciting. Like not just all the animals and the waterfalls, but like public bathrooms were like, this is amazing. Like, just that joy and enthusiasm for every single thing in life. And I remember when we got towards the end of that trip, we were in Yosemite in a pop-up camper and, there's no Wi-Fi in any national parks and my 11-year-old at the time was kind of like, oh, is there no Wi-Fi here? And I'm like, no, sorry, buddy. And I just remember we were all the kids were sleeping in the pop-up. And I remember thinking, oh, like this might be the last chance to do this. Like in 10 years, I'm not going to be able to drag a bunch of 20-year-olds with me for 10 weeks in a pop-up of all things to 10 national parks. Like they're going to, be in college or be married or have jobs and families. And if we didn't do this now, like this moment might have passed us by. And so it's hard to say one was the best because so many of them, I look back and I'm like, that was the one chance to do that. And if I hadn't done it then, that opportunity might have never come around again.
That's so true. I've got 2 kids of my own, and they are still just about in the stage where they, love being around me and my wife as a family. And so we've been able to get away the last 3 or 4 summers. We just take the entire month off, head to Europe, either France or Germany or Switzerland, and just be together as a family. And that, like you said, is not going to last forever. When they're 20s and they've got their own boyfriends and they may not want to come and stay with mum and dad anymore. But taking advantage of seasons of life is, I guess, one of the amazing things about retiring often. So are there any traits of people that successfully managed to do mini retirements, or are mini retirements for everyone?
I mean, I think they're kind of for everyone.
Brilliant.
And everyone has the reason and the fear and the doubt of why a mini retirement might not work for them. And because I've been writing about mini retirements for a decade, like I've heard all of them. But they're not, it's a perspective that they have, but it's not necessarily like the whole truth. So sometimes I'll speak in an event and someone will be like, well, that sounds awesome, but like there's no way I could take a mini retirement because I'm too important. My job's too important. Like I'm like the CFO. I'm an executive. Like no one else knows how to do my job. I'm really hard to replace. The whole business depends on me. So they have the financial resources perhaps, but they don't feel like they could take the time off. And then on the opposite end, sometimes people are like, I still have student loan debt. Like I make $13 an hour. Like maybe I could get a month off, but I don't have the resources. And on both of those, they're actually not that complicated of problems to solve. The great thing about mini retirements in affordability is that they can be incredibly proportional to your income. So if you're bringing home $3,000 a month, I always encourage people to try to set their budget for their mini retirement at no more than 50% per month of your take-home pay. So if you bring home $3,000, you could spend an extra $1,500 a month on your mini retirement. Well, an extra $1,500, if over the course of a year, you might only have to save a couple $100 a month to be able to save up for that. You could probably dog sit, like you could babysit. Like there's a lot of different ways you could earn a couple $100 to do this. And on the other side, like for a CFO, the way I challenge that narrative of like, I'm too important to take a month off is, well, how long would it take to replace you if you quit your job? And they're like, oh, geez, like, yeah, that's like a 6-month process to hire someone who's like good enough to do my important job. And I'm like, okay, cool. And how long does it take that person to get up to speed in this really important, hard to do job? And they're like, oh yeah, it's a process. It's like another 6 months for them to even maybe perform at my level, which is a big maybe. And I'm like, okay, so your employer could give you a month off, or they could take a year of your role either not being filled or underperforming. And our job as employees when we go to negotiate this is to do the mental and emotional work to figure out, how is my mini retirement the easiest, cheapest, simplest solution? Because we're all people. And most people go with the easiest, cheapest, simplest solution. So if giving you a month off is the easiest, cheapest, simplest solution to this problem, more often than not, that's what they're going to do.
That's genius. Yeah, when you phrase it from the point of view of, I'd really like to take a month off, but it might take a year to replace me. Are you really going to hold me over a barrel to say, no, you can't take a month off when it's going to be such a costly thing to the employer to replace you? Genius. I love it. I did a episode on the podcast last year, so I like to talk about financial health, physical health, mental health, relational health, and spiritual health. I'm hoping to hit at least a few of those in the podcast today. But last year I put out an episode on the podcast saying you should take your family traveling for a month every year. And I got some pushback, and people were saying, some people just can't take that time off work. I've got kids to sort out. I've got life to do. You've already given us a great strategy for somebody who's really important, high up in the company. Are there any other kind of people that might object in a similar kind of way? Or I've got one listener in particular who she's ready to pack her bags, but her husband is just panicking about missing work. He is a potentially workaholic, and he's really hesitant to take any time off, let alone having a mini retirement. Have you come across those kind of situations with people? One spouse ready to go, other spouse not so keen?
And here would be kind of my controversial take. I think she should go. Like, I think she should go do the thing. And whatever she's hoping to experience, go experience that. Because sometimes, especially when we have a spouse that is maybe interested in the change that we want to make, but they don't have experience with it. They can't see it. They can't visualize it. Like, I think it's really lovely when the other spouse is like, don't worry, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to set the example. I'm going to show you how it's done. I'm going to show you how awesome it could be. I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you all about it. And then next time we can do it together. But there's something incredibly painful in life about wanting to make a change and feeling like you need to convince someone else to make that change with you in order for you to make that change. But it's really common, especially in romantic dynamics. Like, one partner wants to lose weight, but they're waiting for the other partner to want to lose weight as well before they give themselves permission to do it. Or one person wants to become an entrepreneur, but until the other person is like on board, they hold themselves back. But it creates grief because you're not living your best life, and it also creates resentment because you've falsely blamed the other person for holding you back. And resentment kills relationships. So in that scenario, I'd be like, go do an amazing adventure. Invite your mom, invite your sister, go with a friend, go with your brother, like, go by yourself, go do this thing and live your best life. And maybe your spouse wants to make that change with you, and maybe they don't, but at least you're not going to carry that resentment.
Yeah, that's really, again, really smart. Just thinking, I love you, but there's this thing that I need to do, and if you can't come with me, won't you just, let me go and take a time off and, like you say, come back and feel refreshed, ready for, the next phase of the relationship, ready for the next phase of work, ready for the next phase with the kids. You feel energized after taking that little bit of time off. Now, one of the things you have mentioned, which I have talked about half of the time, is what money can do for you. And I've put a podcast episode out there saying money can buy you freedom. But you've talked about freedom and security and making it do both. Can you speak a little bit about how financial independence and mini retirements kind of complement each other or at odds with each other?
I think they work really well together. So I started doing mini retirements because my spouse at the time and I, we didn't have high earning degrees. Like, we didn't have high earning income potential. And so I thought, well, like, there's no way I'll ever be financially independent, like, before my 60s. So if I want to do these cool things throughout my life that are really meaningful for me, like, this is the one tool I have that maybe I can access. And I became financially independent at 32. Like, which sounds like bizarre and crazy and like a made up thing, even to myself, having lived it. But I don't think they're at odds with each other. And in fact, I think that they can, especially if you're strategic about it, they can massively complement each other. Mini retirements don't have to financially set you back. They can accelerate your financial growth. They can accelerate your career growth. Like we talked about in the beginning, the economy's different. Before, staying at the same company for 40 years was like your best chance at financial security. That was like the peak. The peak way to like maximize your career is just stay and be super loyal. Now the reality is, if you want a 10% raise, if you want a 20, a 30% raise, your best chance for getting that is switching jobs, switching companies. And so if you want to be strategic, if if you're 24, if you're 25, say, you know what? I'm going to take a mini retirement every 3 years. Either I'm going to negotiate it off, or I'm going to switch jobs and I'm going to come back into a higher paying job. That time off, because of those strategic mini retirements, can massively increase your lifetime earning potential. It could get you to financial independence so much faster. I had one friend who had stayed at a company for 15 years, took a year-long mini retirement, and the job he got afterwards was 50% higher pay than what he had been earning before. And that wasn't like a weird anomaly. It's because he stayed too long at that job. If he would have left 3 years in, 5 years in, he could have had that additional income this whole time. He could have been paid appropriately all 15 years, not just the first 3 years he worked there. He left so much money on the table by being loyal and missed out on these mini retirements.
Yeah. If you don't get paid what you're worth if you stay there too long, you just kind of end up getting a 3% raise or a raise in line with inflation. And yeah, by saying, right, I'm done here, taking a mini retirement, and then coming back 3, 6 months, 12 months later, again, genius. You've got some great philosophies and great tactics as well to go with the philosophies, not just ways of thinking, but practical outworkings of things. It's great.
So if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and you're on the beginning side of that wealth building, beginning side of that wealth accumulation, kind of earlier in your journey, you can be very strategic about this. I talk about in my book, prioritize things that are low cost. Let's say you have 50 items on your bucket list. You can front load the affordable ones for when you have less money and save the more expensive ones for later in your financial journey. And not every mini retirement, if you're going to take a dozen of them, if you're going to take 2 dozen of them, not every one has to be like an expensive vacation. You can do a lot of different things on a mini retirement. And so you might be strategic, and maybe every other mini retirement, every third one, is a wealth building mini retirement. So for 2 of mine, we bought rental houses. And one of them is the house that I live in now. It was a rental house that we used for 6 or 7 years. We paid, like simple math, we paid about $100,000. We've put another $100,000 into it. So we're about $200K into this house, and it's worth about $500K. So we took a month off and we're $300,000 richer for it. Like, and I'm glad we did that in our 20s. Like that was a great choice.
That was a great move.
Yeah, and we did it twice. Worked out really well. But I know people who've started side hustles. They've done a career pivot. They invested in real estate. They did some of these strategic things that they've read books about. They've listened to podcasts, but they never had the time or the energy or the emotional bandwidth to actually do the thing. What if you gave yourself a month or 3 months and did that thing that you're like, it's such a cool idea, but I've never actually accomplished it. And it could massively change your financial trajectory.
Yeah, it's going to take you a long time to earn that money. Whereas if you can take time off, take a mini retirement, leverage your time and your efforts and your skills into something that's going to earn much more than you would just from going to work, it opens up so many doors. Fantastic. I am interested and curious to find out how you and the people that you work with, how you use mini retirements to aid with your physical and mental health.
I have done both a lot. One, and I recommend this to basically everyone. In my late 20s, I took a month off to do intensive outpatient therapy, like mental health therapy. It's like 6 hours of therapy a day for 4 weeks, which is like absolutely exhausting. You're just like in a coma the rest of the time, just like eating and sleeping. But it was a huge reshift. It was like going in and taking a house down to the studs and renovating the whole thing in this really quick amount of time. And I think I was about 27 at the time. I'm 42 now. I look back at that moment in time, and that's how I delineate my 20s. I think about time pre month-long intensive therapy, and I think about time post month-long intensive therapy, because it was a massive, radical trajectory shift for my personal development. I was growing at one pace, one trajectory before, and not that it finished the work. I don't think therapy ever finishes the work, but it was such a jump start. And like I tell people mini retirements are life-changing because you change. You change during this time off. And I came out a different person. Therefore, my life was different after that. And I think about mini retirement sometimes as like a capital investment. Like if you have a business and you invest time or infrastructure or resources in your business with the idea of this will increase my profitability, or this will increase our efficiency moving forward as a company. So we're going to make this big one-time investment. That's kind of a mini retirement. It's a big one-time investment in your mental health, in your physical health, in your hobbies, in your relationships that will continue to pay dividends for years and decades to come. I did a couple that I focused on my physical health, especially right about the time I hit 40. I was like, oh, my body's different. I can't eat candy for breakfast. And apparently it requires vegetables. And like my sporadic, I'll lift weights like a few times a year routine, like it doesn't work anymore. And my body needs something different. And, I talk about mini retirements. They're great to lean into a season of life, but they're also good for things that don't fit into nights and weekends. And it's easy to think about that like, oh yeah, like hiking the Camino. Like you can't do that on a long weekend. You should probably take a month off. But the reality is, especially as a 40-year-old parent, when you have work and kids and parents and all of these obligations, and you're taking care of so many people, getting everyone fed and everyone clean and like everything organized, should you be able to do a massive study of nutrition and strength training and endurance training and figuring out what foods are best for you and figuring out how your body responds? Sure. And we can like make ourselves feel guilty and shameful that like we don't actually have the mental and emotional bandwidth to do that and juggle the other 27 plates. Or you can say, actually, I'm probably worth a month.
Yeah.
I'm worth a month to like figure this out because this is going to help me age better. This is going to help me when I'm 80. This is going to help me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just thinking about normal life here in Cardiff, it's just hectic. We've got kids, we've got school, we've got church, we've got work that we're doing, and trying to think, how should I be eating for this stage of my life? Like you said, it's not the same as when you can, smash a McDonald's breakfast, lunch and dinner, and play, 2 games of football on the same day. You can't do that. And one of the things I love about designing your life with flexibility is that you have a bit more time to do the things that you wouldn't normally fit into your daily life. And so I thought, I have thought, wouldn't it be good to take a month off to renovate a house or whatever it is to get myself financially ahead? I haven't thought about taking a month off to check my mental health, to check my physical health. And that is something that I'll be taking away from this, thinking, maybe there's a focus for my next mini retirement. Yeah, fantastic. We are heading to France again this summer, and I'm thinking about relational health now. We're going as a family. We're actually this year going to meet my brother-in-law and his family and his kids for a week of that month. And so there's going to be cousins and all that kind of thing for some of it. Is there any way that you use your mini retirements to do something specific in terms of relationships with family, or do you just kind of rock up and just live life together for a while and see what happens?
Just me. I always tend to err on the intentional side. Everything
Nice.
I do is pretty intentional. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways I think about it. One summer, I took the summer off and I called it daily adventures with my kids.
Mm.
Every day we left the house and did something fun. It wasn't always a big thing. Sometimes we just went and got an ice cream cone or a donut or went to a park or went for a walk. But we also did the like be a tourist in your own town kind of stuff that there again, when you're so busy and you're juggling so many plates, it's hard to be like, okay, now everyone also get in the car. We're going to leave for 90 minutes and go do something fun. Like it doesn't seem to fit very well, at least on a every single day basis. And that was amazing. Like it was such a fun summer. And it shows like you don't have to necessarily travel to do cool things with your kids. It's just that intention. But we have, me and my family, we've done lots of long road trips, like 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. And it's an incredible opportunity to make those investments in relationships, whether it's friends, extended family, cousins, aunts and uncles, that, gosh, if we only have 2 weeks off a year, like there's just not enough time. There's not enough time to see our friends from high school and our friends from college and all the cousins and, the people that we knew at the first job we worked at, like relationships that are important to us. And honestly, relationships are so critical to our health, but there's just not enough vacation days to hit everyone in a meaningful way every year. So a big road trip, a big mini retirement is an incredible way to strengthen those relationships, even if it's long distance. I had a thing this spring and summer where I called a friend every day, a different friend. And some friends were people that I talked to once a year, and some were people that I talked to once a week. But I got through like 30 or 40, different people, it just taking that 1 hour every day to invest in those relationships and reconnect. The other thing that I do, I have a group of girlfriends that we travel with together probably like 3 to 8 times a year, like a lot.
Nice.
But one of those reasons is that, for all of us, when we imagine being financially independent, when we imagine old age and retirement, we imagine it with friends, like sharing that with people we care about and that we know and that we trust and that we enjoy their company. And if you want to have that as a 70-year-old, you might need to start making some friends, and building those relationships and investing in them so that you have those, they're again kind of almost those assets that there's a lot of research that like your walking speed and the number of friendships you have is one of the greatest predictors of longevity by the time you're 65. Like it's so important to our mental and our physical health, to our longevity. But sometimes we don't take it as serious as we do like our VO2 max or our strength training or like eating vegetables.
Yeah. I had a friend come and he took a sabbatical off work. So he's a pastor of a church and he took a sabbatical off, and we've called on the phone a couple of times, but he came to stay for a few days during his sabbatical time, and it was just such a wonderful time. It was like being back at university again. I managed to take a few days with not work, my flexible work, and we just spent time going to the beach with my one kid who's not in school, doing the things that we used to do. And like you say, keeping your friends and having friends which are old friends in old age is phenomenally underappreciated, I think. And so using your mini retirement to keep those relationships going, visiting your university friends, going and spending time with family members that you maybe don't see. My brother's moved to the other side of the country, and so I haven't seen him as much in the last 18 months or so. And so, spending some mini retirement time doing that kind of thing is amazing. So one of the objections that people might have about taking mini retirement with kids is, they've got school, so we can't take them out of school. Do you have any experience of kids in school, kids out of school, homeschooling? How do you manage the mini retirement deal with kids?
Yeah, we have done it every which way. So we've definitely done ones over the summer where that's not an issue, but we've also, taken them out of school for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then come back and, put them back in school. We've also unenrolled them, homeschool them while we traveled, and then re-enrolled them when we got back. And every school is different. Every state and country is different. In the US, that's fairly simple to do up until like ninth grade when they're like 14, 15. And then the credit system is a little bit different and gets a little bit trickier. And so I encourage people, especially if their kids are like elementary school, below 12, 13, is really ideal if you want to do a 6-month trip or a 12-month trip. One, the school logistics are easier. Two, the likelihood that they're excited about spending 24 hours a day with you for weeks and months at a time is much higher. Now, it might happen. You might have a 16-year-old that's like glued to your side and wants to cuddle with you all the time and doesn't care about like missing sports or missing their friends or missing their boyfriend or their girlfriend or like whatever. But the odds go down over time. And even junior high kids, I have 2 in junior high right now. The mood on any given day is unpredictable, which is fine when they're in school. It's less cute and funny though. Like if you're in Florence looking at museums and they're like super grumpy about something because they're in junior high and they can just be super grumpy about stuff. But it's less fun, like if you're, in Venice.
Yeah.
So prioritizing, especially those long trips when they're younger, I think is a great move. And maybe doing shorter trips, like 1-month trips, maybe doing it over school breaks. You might take a school break and tack on an extra week or something like that when they get older.
I'd love to hear about your journey of faith and how your spiritual health has changed over the years, how your spiritual health has been affected by your mini retirements, and how your faith has shaped your philosophy maybe on mini retirements.
Yeah, faith has definitely had a really important element. Like I said, I am naturally intentional, so I think I bring that. I realize that I probably color faith with an intentionality that maybe isn't there, like I'm projecting onto it, but I think there is, to some degree, a significance of what's happening in our lives, what's going on, what are we going through, how are we growing, what are our values and our priorities, and is our life really reflecting those accurately? And how I would say that the core sets of my beliefs on my faith have shifted over the years and have grown, but many retirements have been moments and opportunities to realign, to do 2 things. One, to realign what I believe to the substance of my life. Because sometimes in the busyness, sometimes in the distractedness, those get pulled apart a little bit, and our lives aren't a perfect reflection of like our values and our beliefs. And many retirements are a chance to like recalibrate. Actually, this is what I believe. This is what's important to me. And how do I make my life line up with that a little bit better? But the other side is that sometimes in the busyness and distractedness of life, we don't have the opportunity to think deeply and to reflect deeply and to have, more meaningful experiences.
Yeah.
And I talk about this oftentimes in terms of relationships. When I have couples who are going through, I have like a bunch of life planning exercises and things like that that I use with people. And I say, ideally get out of the house and do this. Ideally go away for a weekend, because the answer that you're going to get after you discuss this for 6 hours throughout a very relaxed day is different than the answer you're going to get while you're unloading the dishwasher. When you have more time to contemplate it more deeply and more thoroughly, like you come to different conclusions, you have different revelations, you see it from a different perspective than if it's like while you're driving or while you're taking a shower or while you're trying to get the kids ready for bed. And I think it's true in our faith. Sometimes we need those opportunities to relearn, to recommit, to explore, to expand, and to deepen. Here's what I used to believe is true on a surface level. Like now I want to believe it's true on a very deeper, more significant level. And that's tough to do while you're unloading the dishwasher.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, taking that time to retreat and really kind of connect on a spiritual level is, amazing. Got lots of takeaways to take away from this interview and think about. Now, Jillian, you have mentioned a book that you have written. The book's called Retire Often. Do you want to just take a few minutes to tell us why we should buy the book?
I'm really excited about this book because I think it does two things. It opens people up to a possibility of their life and their career looking vastly different than they assumed it would look, in a really exciting, meaningful way. But it's not just a hype book. It's not like, this is a cool idea, live your best life, like, yay. Because I've done so much one-on-one coaching, I've done so much group coaching, I've done this myself so many times. I know every way. I know every fear. I know every hesitation people have. I know every like roadblock, every problem they face. So I'm excited for it because it tactically gives you every tool you need to go from this is a cool idea to like sending me an email and being like, Jillian, I actually did it. I went and did it. I did this incredible thing and it was awesome. And here's what happened. And like, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. And so I think I'm excited because you can actually do it. Like it'll give you enough things to make this happen. And my hope with the book is that this will become the norm. This isn't a weird thing. It's not a bizarre thing. It's not like, oh, I heard this one person on this one podcast who did that, but like, that's crazy. But our friends are doing it and our family's doing it and our coworkers are doing it. And it becomes part of how we envision us as a society and a culture moving forward in our working career and in our lives in a way that I think benefits us as individuals, but it benefits us collectively too when we're our best, healthiest, most rested, most enthusiastic versions of ourselves, our most connected. I think it's good for everyone.
I can attest to that. It is not just a hype book. It does do that. It does paint the idea of having mini retirements as just an amazing way of life, an amazing lifestyle choice. But like you said, it is absolutely practical. You go into all the details of how to ask your boss for the time off, how you should prepare financially for it, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, hype book, yes. Practical book, 100%. When is the book out? And if people have loved listening to you today, where can they find out more about you and the work that you do?
It releases September 9th, 2025, but it's available for pre-order everywhere. My website's retireoften.com. So super simple. And my podcast is called Retire Often. So shockingly, if you just Google Retire Often, you will find me on the internets. But I do have a podcast where I share different people's retirement stories because it's easy to be like, well, yeah, that works for them, but here's why it doesn't work for me. But then you hear a couple stories about people that are very similar to you, and you're like, or maybe it could work for me. They figured it out. But yeah, I've got free worksheets there. I've got group coaching, a workbook. But yeah, everywhere books are sold September 9th.
Fantastic. I'll be pre-ordering that for sure. And I will put the links to your stuff in the show notes. And final question I like to ask everybody who comes on the podcast is, what does living life to the full mean to you?
For me, I think it is the congruency of my beliefs, of my personality, of my lived experience and knowledge, and like why I feel like I'm here on the earth. And it's congruent with the life I've created around me. It's congruent with how I operate in my friendships and my relationships, and I engage in my community and in the world. Like, when all of those things match, I think it can be incredibly meaningful, enjoyable, but just really, really powerful. And that, to me, that's my fullest life.
Amazing. Jillian, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
So there we have it, my interview with Jillian Johnsrud. Isn't she great? Here are some of the key takeaways that I got from that interview. Takeaway number 1. You can use taking time off work to actually advance your financial position.
You can do a lot of different things on a mini retirement. And so you might be strategic, and maybe every other mini retirement, every third one, is a wealth building mini retirement.
Start thinking about how you can position yourself to make the most of some time off paid work in order to build wealth in other areas. Maybe it is refurbishing a house. Maybe it is buying something that is unloved, decaying, rotting, and turn it into something beautiful that somebody can enjoy living. And you're likely going to end up earning a lot more if you can add a lot of value to the house than you would just working your normal job. Maybe it's taking time off to get a qualification in something that will mean that you are better paid in the future. Whatever it is, having that mini retirement to build wealth and set yourself up for more financial success in the future is a fantastic thing to do. Key takeaway number 2. You can use your mini retirement not just to build financial wealth, but to invest in your mental health.
In my late 20s, I took a month off to do intensive outpatient therapy, like mental health therapy.
Whether you take time off, like Jillian did, for a month of intensive therapy, or you take a month off to break an addiction, a phone addiction, or whatever addiction you may have, or maybe you do a meditation retreat or a spiritual retreat for a month. That is a phenomenal use of time. And Jillian defines her time as before that time of therapy and after that time of therapy. And what a difference that intensity can make. It really gives you a chance to get to the core of some of the things that are holding you back in your mental health and addressing them so that you have the opportunity to live the rest of your life in a much better position, a stronger position. Key takeaway number 3. Use a mini retirement to make the most of your relationships. It's fantastic to be able to build wealth. It's fantastic to be able to sort your mental health out, but it's phenomenal use of time to spend time getting to know friends, being with friends, creating memories. And so that when you are in your 70s, in your 80s, you can look back fondly on those times that you've had, those relationships that you've invested in. It takes a long time to make old friends.
The other thing that I do, I have a group of girlfriends that we travel with together probably like 3 to 8 times a year, like a lot.
Nice.
But one of those reasons is that, for all of us, when we imagine being financially independent, when we imagine old age and retirement, we imagine it with friends, like sharing that with people we care about and that we know and that we trust and that we enjoy their company. And if you want to have that as a 70-year-old, you might need to start making some friends.
So if you have amazing plans to take mini retirements throughout your life after being inspired by Jillian, then make sure you've got some friends to do them with. On that note, why don't you share this episode with a friend who you'd like to take a mini retirement with? I would love to find out what your key takeaways are from today's episode. So hit me up on Instagram or send me an email. Life to the Full Podcast, davmorse@gmail.com. Everything you need will be in the show notes below. Until next time, peace out.